Welcome back, you guys, to the Butterfly Season podcast. I have honestly somebody that is so dear to me and so close to my heart. And a lot of the reason why we even have the Butterfly Season podcast, and her name is Tracy O'Malley. We talk about the Enneagram, but not like surface level bullshit. We get into like traumas. We get into like what the core fears are behind the different Enneagram types and how by understanding those, you don't repeat those cycles, just you in your personal life, but even generationally for your family lineage. You might cry. I cried in the beginning. We have some people listening and watching right now that have also cried as we're recording. So like, buckle up because this one's wild. Tracy.
Aisha.
This is a special moment because this is the Butterfly Season podcast where we celebrate the beauty and the transformation. And the transformation is cocoon season, right? Like happens in that time. And you were one of the biggest catalysts in my like most recent earth-shattering cocoon season.
Yeah.
You put such a lovely bow on what I was experiencing, what was happening. I had Lizzie on the podcast and we talked about codependency and all the things. And she just like in a nutshell, if you haven't listened to that podcast, it's like one of the first ones, listen to it. But she was just like, you're codependent. And I was like, cute that you think that. But I was.
You were.
And you were able to pick up on how resistant I was to like Lizzie trying to tell me that I was codependent and getting me to like sign up for that I was.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until you explained it that I realized, oh shit.
Yeah.
This is me. And the reason why I'm telling you that this is such a special moment is because you held all of that emotion in me so gently and like allowed me to, wow, I'm getting emotional. Allowed me to like, you know what I mean? Feel in it, sit in it, and like guide me through.
And not be shamed by it.
I'm like about to cry.
Let it rip.
So thank you for that.
My absolute freaking honor.
So anyways, you are like Enneagram personality expert. I'm just going to let the tears roll.
Let them go.
Because they're like getting caught up in here. So that's fine. Also, side note, I was watching this TikTok about a therapist was like, I can tell like personality types like when they're in my office. And she was like riffing on like astrology signs, and she was like, yeah, Pisces, like the tears just fall, they just keep talking, they never like say like, oh, I'm crying, they just I'm like, that's me. But back to you and personalities. You are like a wizard.
I am. I will own that.
You are a wizard at personalities.
Yeah.
Like when I first figured out Enneagram stuff, I was like, oh, okay, like
cute.
Yeah, that's cool, know about myself. But like you understand how personality types and how you might show up as a husband or wife, and like how you can unpack and remove layers and like be your best self, but allowing this tool to like help you be your best self.
Yeah. You know, I've always kind of been a wizard in understanding personalities, and I didn't come by that from a good place. You know, I grew up in an alcoholic home where I had to kind of scan the scene and understand exactly what was about to happen based on an energy, a foot movement, a breath pattern, you know? And so
Can you unpack that? Because you've told me that several times on occasion in different scenarios, but I do think that for a lot of us, some of our big T trauma or like bigger traumas end up being what we're like absolutely skilled at as an adult.
Right. You know, it was life or death a lot of the time. And because I was the token kind of codependent in the house that was making sure dad was okay and happy, mom could at least get up out of bed, sister wasn't like causing shit shows everywhere she went, I needed to kind of play chess with all these players. And it is the thing I'm good at, but you know, it was coming from this place of dysfunction and fight or flight. And why I fell in love with the Enneagram though, is it kind of gave me framework to attach to it. Now, like obviously those are behaviors I saw, and the gift and the beauty of the Enneagram is it's rooted in psychology and motives and fears, but then like how we're dropped into the world and the experiences we have can shape how that gets expressed.
Right.
And really when I found the Enneagram. I came into it kicking and screaming in my own cocoon season. And I was very resistant to it because I was like, I don't need freaking labels and this is silly. Like, these are my problems. I need you to help me fix this to my therapist in rehab. You know, like, it was not a shining moment in my life. And she was like, this might help you get out of the box that not only you've put yourself in, but the world has put you in. And your best thinking has gotten you here. So how about we like strip it down and take it to the foundation? And I was 40 at the time. So it's like, oh shit. Okay. But like that combination of being able to read energy, a room, body language, combined now with the tool and doing it from integrity and with the proper intent, that's when I was able to leverage, you know, everything that I'd experienced. And I'm not somebody who believes that everything happens for a reason, because some heinous shit happens to really good fucking people. And it's hard to make sense and even justify, even when you've seen goodness on the other side. Nobody wants to hear that when they're in cocoon season or in a shit storm. They don't. You're like, shut the fuck up. Like, you're an asshole. Like, really? Yeah. But I do believe that anything that does happen, even the heinous shit, you can make something beautiful out of it. And so, you know, the perfect storm of the traumas, the experiences, the codependency, the alcoholism, the addiction, my own stuff, with this tool at the right time, with the right integrity and the right intent. Now I can leverage all that shit that I wanted to matter for something good with people like you. Yeah. And when I saw you and I saw Lizzie going in hot, you call us the 1-2 punch all the time.
Yes.
And I could sense that, like, she's not, like, no matter how well-intended Lizzie was in that moment, like, it wasn't landing for you.
Yeah.
And you were resistant to it. And me picking up on that, because we're a lot more alike than you may even know sometimes, like in that vulnerability and the kind of public arena where it was happening, I could sense what was going on. So using those things that I've experienced plus the leverage of a beautiful gift with a beautiful intent, and here we are.
Yeah.
In butterfly season, baby.
No. So with respect to, like, help the listeners, watchers, wherever you're streaming, watching this, understand, like, what was it that you picked up on based off of my Enneagram type? Yeah,
like, I knew you were a 3. Significance driven, nothing wrong with that. Everybody in the heart triad, the 2s, 3s, and 4s, like, hate that. Like, I don't want to be driven by significance. It's one of the human needs.
You said heart
triad, heart center of intelligence. So there's 3 different centers of intelligence. I would love to explain, like, why people need to understand the Enneagram. And this will go in the way that I explain it. If you follow any other Enneagram people, you'll never hear it like this. It's why I'm different, for sure. You know, we're gifted with this intuition and nervous system in the body, the ultimate vessel, right? And ideally, that is the ultimate compass from a divine source, right?
Yeah.
But so often we bypass out of that because of modeling, culture, upbringing, traumas, right? And so when we get the hit from our intuition or our body's trying to tell us something, for most of us, we fight or flight out of it. We go to numb it. We go to pacify it, whatever. And that's where these parts of our personality come into play in default, right? We can use our personality and all the sparkly parts of it while we're in our intuition and our nervous system. But for most of us, we default into those coping mechanisms and behaviors to protect the biggest fear of our Enneagram type. And so, you know, with you being in the heart center of intelligence, I know you're motivated by significance. And as a 3, you know, your biggest fear is not being the very best. And you're a social 3, which means prestige and where you fit in the collective is very, very important for you.
You know, when I hear that, it's true.
I know.
It doesn't feel like great.
It's not a bad thing. You're a world changer.
I'm about to cry again.
You're a world fucking changer.
But that doesn't feel great. Like, it feels like a vanity metric.
It's not.
You know what I mean?
A lot of 3s, that's default.
Which, okay. So it is the default, but I feel like, and we can, like, reconcile this, but I feel like it's those motivations that got me into a cocoon season in the first place.
Well, you're going to have different stages of that for sure.
Totally.
Yeah.
But I'm like, how do you not get the toxic
awareness?
Yeah.
And understanding that that's always going to be your blind spot. Just like my blind spot is my superpower. Like, I flex and I am a rock for people, and I'm why, like, you feel safe with me and protected, and I've got your fucking back. Like, you feel that all the time.
That's probably why I'm crying.
That is also my kryptonite. And I always have to be mindful. Am I doing what I do best for the flex to prove to myself and the world that I'm strong? Or am I doing it because I'm a rock for Aisha?
Yeah.
Where am I doing this for the flex of significance, or am I doing this to show what's possible?
Yeah.
And you, my love, are showing what's possible.
Yeah.
It's not a vanity metrics. But you're always going to have to check it, and you have to take your own inventory. And there are times like, I'm like, yeah, this is the beautiful thing to do for even my own children. And I'm like, honey, that's for the flex. Yeah. And so when you meet that part of yourself, instead of hitting ourselves with guilt or shame or unworthiness, ego, we're human. And your environment a lot of time reinforced the dysfunctional part of that.
Totally.
So meet that little girl inside of you with compassion. Of course you're going to do that. Of course that feels really good to the ego. And if you do what you do, like, you're going to get that prestige and significance. Yeah. But is that really what the motive I want that to come from?
Yeah.
So, like, it's your superpower and also your kryptonite, and it will always be your blind spot.
Yeah.
And so when you catch it where it's in the ego or whatever it is, compassion.
Yeah.
And I know this shit, and I still catch myself in it because we're human.
Right. You closed a loop for me. So I was introduced to the Enneagram, and accolades and all of the things. Yes, that's a driving force. But when I realized, like, at the root of that was self-worth. Mm-hmm. And I realized, okay, like, I have a low self-worth, but I was like, I was like, but I'm very confident. How does that even make sense? But they're two separate lanes. And so then I started to become resentful over the Enneagram 3 personality type, accolade driven, all of the things, prestige, like the appearance matters, because I felt like it was just like a shell. Like, there was nothing on the inside. It was just, on the outside. And then I started to think, I wonder if I'm a 3 from, like, upbringing, and maybe I'm not actually a 3. Maybe I'm something else. I'm just like a conditioned 3 because I'm trying to reconcile, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, no, it's a combination of, like, how it gets expressed in the world. I mean, 8s, which is what I am, we're the biggest assholes on the Enneagram. And there are times, like, absolutely, like, we're domineering and aggressive and mean and bullies. And, like, those are some of the things that are said about an 8. And those can be very true if I'm not coming from love, compassion, empathy, service, grace, and fun and innocence.
Yeah.
Right? But we can flip the script and looking at, like, I think this is how I believe about the Enneagram. I do believe, and I've carried 2 babies in my belly, and they were very, very different energetically, and I could feel their spirit. And now, like, out in the world, they are very true to what they were. And I do believe we have this divine wiring, and then we are dropped into a circumstance, and how that gets expressed based on the conditioning or the reinforcements, like, can make it. I was wondering the same thing. I'm like, am I really still an 8? Yes. Absolutely. Yeah. And I think I came out of the womb fighting. I was almost born at 7 months when my mom was pregnant. So I'm a fighter.
Oh, you're like, no, my
gritty,
time.
and I'm going to show the world how strong I am, like, even in utero. So take that for what it's worth.
Yeah. But
there's nothing wrong with being a significance-driven, prestige-loving Enneagram 3 because you do. I don't idolize many people, and I don't put many people up on a pedestal, but seriously, you're one of the few that really, like, you inspire the fuck out of me, not just in your soul and in your spirit and your work ethic and what you do and how you do it so beautifully, but, like, I need you to dress me as well.
Thank you.
So we'll just put that on the.
You.
Yeah.
We definitely have some, like, fashion muse stuff. Like, when I see you and, like, I'm like, Tracy, pass the link to the outfit, please.
Really?
Yes. Especially when you do, like, baggy girl stuff. I'm, like, into that.
Okay. I'm very flattered.
I'm into that. So another thing, this is just a little bit of affirmation, but I want to unpack. This morning in yoga, I had, like, a download about, like, I've been having, like, dreams back to back. This is, like, really weird, but I've been having dreams back to back about, like, high school, like, childhood boyfriends that I would be, like, competing for the guy with a random girl, but I would like look at the guy and be like, I don't even like you.
It's the win.
It's the win.
The end zone. It's the goal line.
I had 2 dreams back to back every night. And I'm like, why am I dreaming about past guys? Like, this feels like really weird. And then in yoga, I was like, okay, just gonna sit with whatever's happening. And then I realized, like, how many things are we doing in life that your desire to lose is stronger than your desire to be in alignment?
Yeah.
Your desire to win is stronger than your desire to be in alignment. And so you're just doing things to win, but you don't even want the award.
No, and like for threes, this will always be something you have to watch for is like, am I doing this for the goal line or am I doing this to honor the soul line, right? Like always kind of discerning that. And threes typically will do things they know they can win, like wanting the boyfriend, knowing like I can take that guy from that girl, and like you don't even want it, but it's just knowing you can and you can do it well, right? Goal line, not the soul line, right? So like I said, always going to be your thing. But it's what makes you amazing, because when you do say, that's about the goal line and I'm going to like take a seat and instead you say yes to the things that honor the soul line, like that's when we have change makers like you really make their mark in the world. And you're going to recognize, like, would you do it if it wasn't measured? That's another question I tell threes, like, or if nobody saw you do it, would you still want to do it? You know, so you can kind of start asking your questions if your bullshit meter isn't like on point and you're justifying why you're yesing this, because I can justify why I'm going to flex all day long. I can. And, you know, for you, like asking yourself all the time, if this wasn't measured or if nobody witnessed it, would I still want to do it? And if it's a no, then probably that's the goal line, not the soul line.
So I want to talk about fear for a little bit, because I feel like it's at the root of a lot of things.
Fear?
Yes.
Yeah.
And there are distractions that like mask fear, like anger, whatever, you name it. There's just distractions, but really at the root of it is fear. How is understanding your Enneagram type not it's not restricting, it's actually empowering for you to like peel back the layer of whatever the distraction is, but to address the fear? And then what would integration even look like?
This is the beauty of the Enneagram, because we're more than just that type. There's, you know, just like, you know, our food and nutrition, in the world we live in today, we got to supplement, because our food isn't giving us everything we need.
It's not giving what it's supposed to give.
No, it certainly is not. And your core Enneagram type isn't giving you everything you need either. So you need these supplements. And that's why the framework, we're more than just a 3 for you. You've got wings, you've got an instinct, you've got lines that are growth and stress. We have a tri-type. We've got all sorts of cool shit that can help us supplement when the 3 part of you is not the right tool for the job.
Yeah.
Right. But what I love and what I recognize about the Enneagram and the archetypes, the 9 different archetypes, is there's a very unique fear for each one. And when you know what it is, even if you're like thinking, no, I just don't like that bitch, and like, screw her. Like if we really do the 6 degrees of reverse engineering, what it's really about for each Enneagram type, it's very unique. So what this allows you to do is get to the root of what's really going on. And when you can meet that part of you, that biggest fear for your Enneagram type, with compassion, you're able to lean into vulnerability. You will attract the right people in your life. You will not be necessarily as afraid of it. It will always be like your fear. And this was really eye-opening for me, because like the biggest fear of the 8 is vulnerability and being betrayed, violated, or put in a vulnerable situation. So that hyper independence, the I don't need anyone, the walls, the Irish duck out even, like, you know.
You are so good at that. Can you explain what that is for people who don't know?
The Irish duck out is like Houdini. Now you see me, now you don't. No goodbyes, you know.
We'll be at parties and I'm like,
where'd she go?
Where's Tracy?
People are on to me now though. Like they see me, like everywhere I go, I'll scope out the room. And you know, that was survival a lot of my life, right? And I mean, it's nicknamed the Irish goodbye because, you know, the Irish get too drunk and, you know, the Irish say goodbye way too long. And by then they're doing 10 more shots and it's a shit show, you know? So the fact that I do it completely sober now is hilarious. But when I'm done, I'm done, you know? But it's also like that vulnerable aspect of saying goodbye to people. Like, what if they want more from me? Or what if I'm tapped out and I want to be like, because when I'm done, I'm done. And if somebody needs something from me and I can't flex, that's really vulnerable for me. So it's just easier for me to just duck on out. Right? So it's a piece of understanding like the fear of that vulnerability. Now, the measuring stick around that fear, a lot of that comes from the conditioning growing up, and it's not always like accurate. Sometimes it needs some reconfiguration, because what I thought was strong and powerful growing up is actually dysfunctional and codependent.
What did you think was strong and powerful?
Being aggressive, not needing anyone, being loud, keeping people at arm's length. Like I really like the motive of the Enneagram 8 is being strong because it's there to protect the fear of vulnerability. And so I had to recalibrate and reconcile my measuring stick for what is actually strong.
Yeah.
And it's actually the vulnerability.
So I don't have too much interest in being like, Enneagram, this is this. No. Enneagram, this is this. But I do have an interest, if this is a thing, do each Enneagram type have like their own unique fear?
Yeah, we can do that real quick. Because like for the Enneagram 1, motivated by being good and right, independence, autonomy, and control, right? But how they go about it is by being good and right. No gray area. No gray area. Their biggest fear is not being righteous. And so that's why they're the perfectionist, and they will be hypercritical first of themselves and then the surroundings.
Wow.
Right? And when they can reconcile that their worth is not tied in being just right and good all the time, like there is gray area. When they can reconcile that, like then we can find more of that free-spirited part of the Enneagram 1. For the 2, their biggest fear is not being loved and appreciated. That's how they find their significance, right? And so they can be overgivers, and their biggest fear is not being loved and appreciated. So they'll over-yes themselves.
Yes.
And then be resentful that we can't read their minds the way that they can. Yeah. We think your hubby's a 2, right?
Yeah,
possibly?
I think he's a 2 or a 1.
Oh,
or maybe a 9. I don't know. At this point, I'm like, he's all of them because we all
I'll figure it out.
Yes.
I'll spend some more time with him. The 3, not being the best.
Yeah.
That's where your significance comes. And there's nothing wrong with that. Just like it's nothing wrong for the 2 being driven by being loved and appreciated. They're the natural connectors of the world. Like they're relationship people. You're the pace car. You show us what's possible. But when that fear of not being the best comes up, you know, all of a sudden you will start picking the goal line instead of the soul line.
Oof. I just had a flashback of one of my MySpace names in middle school. Was like Aisha the Best or like something.
Love that. Ramona the Great. Did you read those books at all?
No.
Like when you were a kid? I think it was Ramona the Great, like great children's book series, but she was probably an Enneagram 3. So Enneagram 4 is also driven by significance, but it's a little different. It's an internal job. They find significance in finding their true authentic self. So their biggest fear is not being that. So they can be a little extra sometimes, a little dramatic, trying to rediscover themselves.
Okay.
Their biggest fear is abandonment. So they're always trying to recreate or create this new authentic self, but they can only find that when they're like not looking at the rest of the world. You know, they're the artists, creatives, musicians. I mean, Robin Williams was a 4. And to the world, like he was magical.
Right.
But behind closed doors, the comparison, the crazy stuff that went into his head. For Enneagram 5s, our friend Lizzie.
Yes.
Being knowledgeable.
Yeah.
And prepared. Hello.
She knows a lot about a lot.
Oh, I love 5s. Like I have a 5 in every area of my life because what they choose to be an expert on, like nobody can hold a candle to them.
Yeah.
But they want resources, knowledge, and to be prepared. The problem is their biggest fear is not being knowledgeable and prepared. So they hoard their crap. Their fear is not having that. And they're afraid like if they actually put that out into the world, like it's too intense, they'll be energetically bankrupt. Ooh. So they just hoard their stuff.
Wow.
So that's why we need 5s to step into their gifts and kind of go into their zone, which the other framework really can allow a 5. Like I've seen Lizzie do that. Like she's stepping into her 8 zone. Which,
oh, yes. Oh, yes. I'm like, you were in butterfly season. I can feel it.
But she can still go into the cocoon in a healthy, beautiful, nurturing way. Right. And that's when a 5 is in their sweet spot. 6s motivated by certainty. 5s motivated by certainty, but you know, is being knowledgeable and prepared. 6s find certainty in making sure they're not blindsided. They need safety and security. So where a 5 is certainty that they're knowledgeable and have resources, 6s need certainty that they aren't going to be blindsided, and safety and security. Oh. They ask a lot of questions, lots of questions. And so, that's why they're great collaborators.
Yeah.
They're amazing strategists because they're thinking worst case scenario all the time. And they have 10 different game plans if something goes wrong. But if they at all are fearful that the people, like I could be very triggering to a 6 because I'll go in hot.
Yeah.
And I don't think about consequences. I'm a instinctual in the now thinker where 6s are forward thinkers and 5s are forward thinkers and 7s are forward thinkers. That if I just go in hot and we'll ask for forgiveness later, worst case scenario for a 6. And that's where they can get kind of aggressive or needy or things like that. So them understanding and even like pre-warning somebody, I'm about to fire hose you with a ton of questions. And once I have certainty, like I will be your most loyal partner and collaborator, but I need these questions answered.
Which I feel like just like the room.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's like
when
calling
you're
your
able
own shit out.
Yeah.
Like I can say like, I'm going to come in hot right now. And it's going to be a little intense. I promise you it's all for the most beautiful intent.
Yeah.
All of a sudden you're not on guard anymore. You're like, okay, she's going to be spicy. Here we go. Right. For 7s, our friend Chris is a 7. We got lots of friends that are 7s because they're the enthusiastic visionaries. They're the forward thinkers.
He's definitely a 7.
Totally. I thought he was a 3 for a while, but the more I really get to know Chris at his heart, like I see it. But they want certainty that all options are available to them at all times. They want freedom and choices.
Yeah.
They don't want to be put in a box. And so what to the outside world, he can look, very prestige driven and significance driven. It's actually, he wants to do all the things he does so he can have 10 cars and have choices. It's not about like, look at my cars.
Right.
It's like, I may want to drive a Jeep today. I might want to drive a Porsche tomorrow.
I almost feel like too, with that Enneagram type, you said 7, from a universal law standpoint, like just being so enthusiastic about everything, like.
Well, they figure it out. Like I'm raising a 7 and she is the reason why I studied the Enneagram because I don't know how they function most days. Like I don't understand how they like see the best in everything and they believe anything is possible. And, I'm naturally like cautious anyway, because I'm always poking holes in shit, but I needed more of that in my life. But I needed to know how to speak to it so that because they can be a little unfocused, because if they start to feel like they're being boxed in or options or fun is going to be taken from them, they can look like shiny object syndrome chasers and a little squirrel brain. And so like really understanding that that's their gift, but also using really good language, I can rein in a 7 pretty quickly where I'm not like clipping their wings and not allowing them to fly, but also saying, hey, like you're going to do all of it. No doubt about it. Especially like with my daughter. I'm like, you're going to do all of it, but let's like pick 2 first to master. And then we're going to start picking everything up. I'm like, you'll have more freedom and choices if you master these 2 things. So like using very creative language with a 7 is important. You can be spicy with a 7. They don't care because they're not rattled by intensity. But if at all your language indicates that you're going to try to control their freedom and choices, they're out.
Wow.
They're out. 8s, we already talked about, like fear of vulnerability. So we will push back against it. We're motivated by independence, autonomy, and control as well. But how we go about it is by being aggressive and proving like you can't fuck with me. Fuck around and find out, basically, is the bumper sticker for an Enneagram 8.
Oh my gosh, could you sell bumper stickers for Enneagram types?
I'm gonna probably make hats or coffee mugs. Fuck around and find out. Like I'll bury your body and nobody will find you, basically. And then finally, the Enneagram 9s, they're motivated also by independence, autonomy, and control. But how they go about it is by creating harmony internally and in their environment. So it's kind of like a passive way of going about it where, they're also very instinctual thinkers, but their need for this in the moment harmony creates long-term disharmony, and their biggest fear is conflict.
Ooh,
so,
yeah, that's what we said. I definitely think Cam's a 9.
Yeah, and they're so wise. They're like the divine. They're at the top of the Enneagram for a reason. Because,
and my 3 is like, really? Because I think I'm at the top of the Enneagram.
I know. Well, you're the coolest, and you're the sexiest, and you're the best. But the 9 is the most wise.
This feels like strategic verbiage.
But it's true. I'm not. I don't spit lies, girl. It's true. You're the sexiest, funnest, best, all the things. But the 9 is the most divinely wise.
Yeah, he's very wise.
They really are. And as long as they can settle and understand that short-term conflict actually is the greatest catalyst for harmony down the road. But because they're so in the moment thinkers, they kind of bypass that. So when I can help a 9 understand that you're never going to like conflict. I'm just going to let you know right now. But for you to create the harmony that you desire internally and for the greatest good of your environment, this is to whom much is given, much is required.
Yeah.
With great reward comes great responsibility. So I think Jesus was a 9, by the way. I really do. So, and he wasn't afraid to call anybody out.
Yeah.
And he did it for the greatest good of us all.
Right.
So.
Right. Wow.
But when you understand your fear, it's easy to reverse engineer when you're triggered, when you want to throat punch someone, when you want to isolate, when you want to drink, when you want to, I know that anytime my nervous system is not regulated, it's because my fear of betrayal, violation, or a vulnerable situation is coming up every time. Now I just have to figure out where that pain point came or what happened. And it takes a pause, which I'm not really good at.
It's kind of mind-blowing though. And because I feel like it simplifies a lot of things.
Yeah.
Right? You're like, oh, these are my top 4.
Boom.
Where are you?
Boom. And then the other thing, knowing that we're human and it's always going to be there. And no matter how strong I freaking think I am, it's always going to be there. And allowing myself to feel the full scope of the emotions, which is not something I was really good at. I love anger. Oh my God, makes me feel so powerful. But sadness and even joy, sadness is too dark. We don't want, that looks weak. And joy, you're not paying attention. Somebody could kind of betray you if you're not paying attention. But understanding that fear is real and it's always going to be there. And when I'm triggered or dysregulated, figure out where that's happening, meet it with compassion, let myself feel the feelings because people hurt me even as an 8. And I'm human. Let myself be sad, let myself be happy. And when we can do that and accelerate that kind of transformation fast like that, we can move through even the hardest things. And I've experienced the hardest things in my last 10 years.
So what do you say to somebody who is just resistant to explore the deeper parts of themselves because it is scary, painful?
It is.
Vulnerable, all of the things.
Well, what I usually would love to tell people is you don't want to be building this muscle when you're in crisis, like I did. It's not fun to have to do it. And life on life's terms is going to kick you in the teeth. And you can't control the timing of it. And quite honestly, the same package will keep showing up just in different wrapping paper until you freaking get it. And so I would say if I had to do it all over, I do everything the hard way. I do everything when I'm at rock bottom or back's up against a wall, or don't recommend that, right? It's kind of like getting your health together. You don't want to do it when you're in ICU.
But I just feel like it's so hard for some people, and maybe this is a personality type, but
it's hard for everyone.
It's almost like I feel like I've been working on this, but I feel like spirituality wise, right? When I'm in the depths, I'm on it. Every day I'm trying to get clear and pray and this and that. But when things are good, I'm like, woohoo, who needs that, right? But that's what got you to where you are.
Can't get cocky. One of the things I learned in recovery, and it's the one thing, you take what you need and leave the rest. And, I'll have 11 years of sobriety this year. And
congratulations.
Thank you. And I had a coping problem. Honestly, I didn't really have a drinking problem, but that kind of thing just was obvious. But one of the things I take with me every single day is that we are not necessarily cured of all of this, right? What we have is a daily reprieve that is contingent on the maintenance of our spiritual condition. We all have a spiritual condition, but it's the maintenance of it. And just like the things that we maintain our health, we maintain our hair, we maintain our body. If we don't pay attention to that every day, that daily reprieve is going to take a shit when you don't want it to. Yeah. And so just, raise your hand every day and say, I'm committed to this because that maintenance of my spiritual condition is the foundation for everything. The great things, so we can actually enjoy and celebrate them instead of waiting for the other shoe to drop, which is what I used to do with exciting things. I was or I assumed that there was an agenda. That's no way to live. And also I don't want to be burning all the boats every single day just to feel freaking alive. Yeah. That's no way to live either. So having that daily reprieve and knowing that we all have it and I'm here for it. Right. And that way it's kind of like a train, those big long freight trains, they never come to a full stop unless they're done. They kind of slow it way down because it's way harder for it to start from a flat stop. right? And your spiritual condition, like keep, even if it's little touches every day, you don't have to be like in the depths of your inner child every fucking day, but you have to be aware that she's there or he's there and be like, hey, hi, I got you. And then move on with your day. It doesn't have to be like I'm in the depths of the work every day. But one of the things that I keep in mind, if we don't repair it, we will repeat it, or it gets repeated, or both.
Mm. And what is the difference between we will repeat it or it gets repeated?
So if we don't repair it, we repeat it. Like if we don't kind of understand what's at the root of this for ourselves, we will continue to repeat this problem until like God's saying, hold my beer. I'm like, okay, she's not getting it. I'm going to kick her ass a little bit. Yeah. Right? Or it gets repeated. This is generational shit. And sometimes we do both. And I did both. Like I didn't repair it. I repeated it. And guess what? My lineage started to repeat it. And I didn't want that. And so knowing that I want the shit to stop with me and my legacy, like I'm committed to that daily reprieve of that spiritual condition and the maintenance of it every day. And because I touch it every day, even when the hardest things have happened to me in the last few years, yes, I felt it. Yes, it hurt. Yes, I had a tantrum over it, and none of it took me out. It knocked me on my ass for a second or two. But I was standing on the front line of my own life, becoming bulletproof, right? Becoming bulletproof doesn't mean we don't take the hits. We're going to. But because we're bulletproof, we can get back up, and we can get back stronger and from the right places. So like, either you resist it, and sometimes you don't get it till you get it. And I get it. I was 40 years old when I got it. That's a long fucking time. And unpacking 4 decades of conditioning, of codependency, of traumas, of history is a lot harder at 40 than it would be at 25. So like, I'm not going to tell you, and I'm going to take anybody's inventory about when the right time is for you, but I will recommend, like, don't do this when you're in crisis, because it is a lot harder.
Yeah. Wow. I felt that.
Boom.
That's a mic drop for sure. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
For today. You are like, I definitely think we need a part 2 because I'm like, I'm not done.
Okay. I'll come back to you anytime.
I just love you so much. And like,
you know, when you came out with the brand, like Butterfly Season, you know, this is full circle for me too. Because when I was in rehab, you know, it was the lowest point of my life, quite honestly, very humbling. It was hard for me to say, like, I need help. Enneagram 8s don't like to do that. But, you know, my beautiful daughter, Enneagram 7, you know, she wrote me a card, and I still have it to this day. And it's the thing I held on to. And I have a butterfly. We have matching butterfly tattoos on the back of our necks, because she wrote to me at my lowest of lows, just when the caterpillar thought her world was over, she turned into a beautiful butterfly. And so the fact that I'm on Butterfly Season and we're talking about this kind of stuff, like almost 11 years later,
wow,
is just magical, of like how important the cocoon is, but also like to step into that butterfly season.
Yeah.
So thank you for having me.
I love you. I love you so much.